bottom of the feet. I did a meeting in California one time. Everybody had a lot of Band-Aids on their face. It was for an Asian group there. And their leader had told them oregano is excellent as a beauty aid. So they had all been applying oregano, I know, as a beauty treatment. So they had lots of bandages. I had a long discussion with them about proper use of essential oils. Hair follicles is essential oils. We now know, this is a fairly recent discovery, that essential oils can actually absorb down through the hair follicle, and then finally into systemic circulation. And then lastly, as it penetrates through the tissue layers, it can absorb into circulation. The stratum corneum is an interesting thing. Essential oils, depending on what the essential oil is, it can take anywhere from an hour or two to fully absorb through the stratum corneum, to as much as 72 hours for the oil to fully absorb through the stratum corneum. And so a lot of times when we apply an essential oil, we talk about invigorating the absorption process. And we can do that like with massage or with heat or covering the areas, because it will take a while for that to happen. We don't want it to flash off into the environment. Well, here's the big question. Should you dilute essential oils or should you not dilute essential oils? Now, everyone wants to make this an issue of safety, but I'm going to tell you safety is an issue of concentration and delivery, not an issue of diluting or not diluting. I'm not saying you shouldn't dilute. With our new doTERRA Touch line, we love in my home. It's one of our favorite ways to use the essential oils now, and I especially like it for my grandchildren. However, I use the oils undiluted for them as well. So let me give you some idea of why I say that. Now, we already talked about this a little bit and said that different areas on the body have different levels of sensitivity to the skin. So if I feel really compelled that I need to use a more caustic oil around my eye, I'm absolutely going to dilute it. So there is some methodology of why we would dilute under those circumstances. It changes the way the oil absorbs. And let me explain to you why that would make an oil non-caustic and what the advantage to that would be. If we dilute an essential oil, we talked about the stratum corneum, and we talked about essential oils moving through the stratum corneum. And if we dilute an essential oil, it remains very sluggish in the tissues. And it can not only remain sluggish in the tissues, it will absorb, but not penetrate through the tissues. Now think about that for just a minute. Remember I said absorption is how it moves into the tissue. Penetration is how it moves through the tissue. It can absorb, but not readily penetrate, which means the oil can begin to be metabolized locally where you applied it. So if I want systemic benefit, not diluting the essential oil is the better way to go. If I want localized benefit, dilution is a good way. Frankincense. How many of you use frankincense for beauty? Frank, I'm glad you raised your hand. Good job. Frank's using frankincense for beauty every single day. Frank, one of the things that you can do is use frankincense diluted, because it will localize right in the tissues. You'll start to have the enzymatic activity and metabolism of the oil localized in the tissues. So dilute essential oils if you want to hold it in the tissues. Don't dilute if you want it to become more systemic. That's probably the real reason behind should I dilute or should I not dilute an essential oil. Now, if you are diluting essential oils, let me give you some proper ratios real quickly. You know that we've broken these down for you in your product guide. We say an oil can be used neat. It should be, you might be sensitive, you might want to dilute, or it should be diluted. We break that down into some different categories for you. I've seen this all over the map. Remember, safety and consequently the benefits of essential oils is always an issue of concentration and delivery. So if you want to dilute the oils all the time, no matter what, you can. But if we say an oil does not need to be diluted, dilute that at a 1-to-1 ratio. If an oil, we've classified it as sensitive, a 1-to-2 ratio. And an oil, if we say really should be diluted, like a cinnamon or a clove, if we've classified it that way for you, think about it in a 1-to-3 ratio, no more. To be honest with you, I never dilute an oil more than 1-to-1. because it's an issue of concentration. I've seen information that says we should put 1 drop of oil per 5 ml of dilution. You will never receive any benefit. It's always an issue of concentration and delivery. So here's a good dilution ratio for you. Just in closing, so if we look at dermal, 3 to 6 drops topically, no more than 12 to 36 in a 24-hour period of time. And you can see the appropriate dosage use models for children. Now remember, this is an introduction model for people. As you're beginning people into their own journey with essential oils, use this as a little bit of a guide to ensure that they'll have the most favorable and the most positive outcomes that they can have. Now, one final thought in closing, we have a new oil for you. Now, you're familiar with this oil. You know all about our TerraShield. But we've recently had the opportunity to reformulate that completely, and I'll tell you why we have. We've reformulated the oil because as we've gone out and as we've found additional sources of oils and new opportunity, doTERRA right now, for example, in our emotional kit, which you'll learn about this afternoon, I'm hoping that you'll learn a lot about some of the more exotic oils that are associated with that kit, that are unique, that aren't readily available. And that's some of what we have now in this as we've gone out and sourced other essential oils. So Lang & Lang, Nootka Wood. This is really a beautiful essential oil all by itself. It has a very unique aroma associated with it. And then we also have cedarwood. Catnip is in there. A lot of people don't think about catnip as being a really good repellent, but it is. It's kind of core to this formulation. Lemon eucalyptus, Litsia, which is also very unique and different, comes from a flower, actually comes from the fruit of the Litsia tree. And then Arbor Vitae, which you're very familiar with. We launched that at our convention a couple of years ago. You have that here as well, and that also is very unique to doTERRA. I like that because nearly every single oil on this list is kind of proprietary for doTERRA. What they all have in common in this formulation is that every single one of those oils has soothing and calming effects for the skin as well. So not only do we get good nourishment for the skin, but we also at the same time have good, strong repellent activities. So enjoy this new blend. You're familiar with it. You're going to find in this new formulation that it applies much different than what it has in the past. So it's going to be very smooth and very powerful and very effective. So enjoy our new TerraShield. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's a pleasure to be spending